I have a couple of themes right now that I am very interested in continuing to watch and contemplate over the next month or two. I'll talk about this later on in the show, but uncertainty is going to be key. I think that's what we're going to have to really pay attention to is this uncertainty with regard to the economy, with regard to the world at large, Ukraine, etc. There's not going to be a lot of certainty in a lot of areas over the next 30 to 60 days. We'll talk about that more. Then I want to also continue to beat my drum that Musk's popularity among Republicans will be a huge benefit in the second largest car market on earth, the United States. More interesting, there's going to be more and more Democratic leaders right now that are starting to say that the resistance approach that the Democrats are taking right now vis-a-vis DOGE is not a very smart strategy. That cutting the federal budget and getting the deficit under control and getting interest rates down and all the things that are going to happen as a result of what DOGE is trying to do is not a good thing to be fighting against. Anyway, they're suggesting it's a losing proposition. Now, if they sway the party, the Democratic Party, to be at least neutral in that regard, the pressure might come off Musk a bit, at least a little bit. We don't know for sure. Anyway, brand issues, however, related to Musk in Europe, that's another story. You know, the Europeans are far more to the left than the average American, the average European. And while there's some right-wing winds blowing over there, and there's some potential, maybe it's going to take, more like years rather than months for there to be any real change in Europe. Now, things can happen fast, but right now, even free speech is not considered to be that important over there. According to the Financial Times, this is like a very interesting story this morning. Everybody's covering it. It's all over the place. Former Prime Minister and ex-Tesla board member, Prime Minister of Japan, and ex-Tesla board member says he plans to, or there's a theory anyway out there that he's going to approach Elon Musk to support struggling car maker Nissan, launching a turnaround plan in November that would cut global production capacity for its cars by 20%. A high-level Japanese group that includes did they ever name the prime minister here? Oh, Hiro Mizuno. Yeah, I remember this guy, Hiro Mizuno. Anyway, he's apparently put together a group, and he's not necessarily agreeing that he's done this, but there's lots of rumors that he did. And they're going to approach Elon to for Tesla to make an investment in Nissan. The group is hopeful Tesla will become a strategic investor since they believe the world's largest pure electric vehicle maker is keen to acquire Nissan's plants in the U.S. The factories would help to boost domestic manufacturing in response to Donald Trump's tariff threats. I don't think this is correct. I could be wrong, and this guy obviously would know a lot more about Elon Musk's ways of thinking than I do, but I don't think. Anyway, the plan to approach Tesla comes after Nissan walked away from Honda's merger proposal, spurring fears that Japan's third largest car maker could fall into potentially hostile foreign hands, with Taiwanese iPhone assembler Foxconn, activists and private equity groups circling. So Foxconn is interested in Nissan. Man, I don't know why anybody's interested. Anyway, former Prime Minister Suga started his political, I don't care about that. Following the breakdown in negotiations this month, Foxconn confirmed its interest in acquiring Nissan in order to, Nissan shares, not the entire company, as a means to expand its EV manufacturing business. The proposal envisions a consortium of investors with Tesla as the largest backer. So the Foxconn thing also includes Tesla, but also includes a possibility of a minority investment by Foxconn. This is a little confusing, but anyway, Foxconn's involved. Tesla, they're going to hope. But Musk says, look, the Tesla factory is the product. The Cybercab production line is like nothing else in the automotive industry. He posted that on X in kind of a response. Here's another response we'll talk about in a second. Anyway, a spokesperson for Suga denied direct involvement in compiling the proposal. In recent weeks, Nissan had begun its own search for a strategic partner. And Tesla and Apple were mentioned as ideal targets. Apple also, interesting. Well, Foxconn obviously involved there. Okay. Nissan's Tennessee plant has been operating under full capacity not at full, under full capacity, since it started. With a market capitalization of 1.1 trillion, Tesla is among the world's most valuable companies historically. It has not invested in car companies, no, ever. And Musk is pivoting the company's focus and spending 36 billion in cash on autonomous driving and robotics. The Nissan Group assembles all of its vehicles sold in, no, I'm sorry, that's Tesla. We know, all right. I'm sorry, I should have cut this up a little better for you. Okay. Troy Teslike had this to say. He says Tesla doesn't need Nissan's struggling U.S. car factory since its own factory utilization rate in the U.S. was only 48% last year and likely to drop even lower this year. I disagree with that 100%. Troy might be correct, but he misses at least part of the argument for the acquisition. The more and faster that Tesla can build cars with robotaxi capability, the better. I still don't think this is a deal that Elon would have any interest in pursuing. He definitely prefers to build factories from the ground up. Elon said this also in a post today. The Tesla factory. Oh, I guess I got that twice. AJ, this is putting together this show every day. You have to imagine this has to be done very, very fast. Okay, Rivian has become the most loss-making company in the United States, according to AJ. He says Rivian's accumulated losses have now exceeded 23 billion in the fourth quarter. Numbers reported last night show this makes Rivian the most loss-making company in the United States at this time. He says Rivian even surpassed Uber, which it was the prior record holder. As of this writing, I'm not aware of any company in the U.S. with a larger balance sheet loss. Not even close, says AJ. Sawyer Merritt has this. He says, news, Tesla has stopped sales of the new Model Y launch series in various countries all over Europe tonight and introduced the new lower cost Model Y rear-wheel drive, long-range rear-wheel drive, and long-range all-wheel drive. So that would make sense in that Europe still doesn't have FSD isn't allowing FSD as a product, and the launch series had all-wheel drive built in as part of the price. So it would make sense that in Europe, this would be something that would not be that popular, until Europe passes the rules. So then Top Gear, which has never been a real friend of Tesla, has a glowing review of the Model Y out today, the new Model Y, the Juniper. They went on and on and on about all the new stuff and how it's a much better car than the previous one, and that they really listened to their customers and did the things customers were asking for. But there wasn't a quotable quote in the whole thing. It was, sorry, I would have given you more details, but it wasn't that quotable. This is Randy Kirk. Please hit the like and subscribe and notify button. It is Friday. I'm pretty sure that what we're going to end up with is a new interviewee who will be on tonight at the 7:45 hour. And even though he's on the road, Larry Goldberg, I think, will be with us sometime this afternoon, probably around 4 o'clock. Patreon, a new Patreon member, Brent S. Thank you, Brent S., for joining Patreon. We appreciate you jumping on board. This is from Arts Technica. 10 new electric vehicle battery factories are on track to go online this year in the United States. I mean, I know we were trying to count those up the other day. So this includes large plants from global battery giants such as Panasonic, Samsung, and SK, automakers such as Ford, Honda, Hyundai, Stellantis, and Toyota. They're not even mentioning, of course, the major effort by Tesla, theoretically, the 40 gigawatt facility, which was probably bigger than any of these in Reno. If they all open in 2025, the country's EV battery manufacturing capacity is poised to grow to 421.5 gigawatt hours, an increase of 90% from 2024, according to Benchmark Minerals Intelligence. Interesting how Benchmark, though, is not mentioning Tesla's much larger potential increases. Anyway, this industry is seeing some storm clouds, however. The Trump administration taking steps that might, it says that might reduce demand for EVs. And two battery startups, Core Power and Freyr, recently canceled their plans for new U.S. factories. I don't blame anyone who looks at this landscape and wonders if battery bust is coming, but I see a boom that is still just in the early stages, according to Ars Technica. I spoke with analysts this week to get a sense of the significance of the growth and also what factors could determine the success of the new plants. The great unknown is how far the Trump administration may go to change the laws and rules that provide tax incentives to the plants and support growth of EV market share. I'm pretty sure that what we're going to see is the Republicans are cut back on the $7,500 tax incentive, maybe eliminate it altogether. I think they will also cut back on the battery production incentives, but I don't think they'll eliminate it. That's just my position. I think they're going to see the batteries as strategic. And strategic approaches seem to be what the Trump administration is interested in. Even if the government took action to undo tax credits for battery manufacturing, these plants are too far along in their development to be canceled, according to Evan Hartley, a battery industry analyst for Benchmark. They're already built, he said. You can't stop it. The momentum is there, and most of them are in Republican states. It's difficult to take away many thousands of jobs promised to your key voter base. So that could be another reason why they wouldn't cut them out completely. So whether Trump likes it or not, he's about to preside over a banner year for the United States as a major player in EV batteries, thanks in large part to policies of his predecessor, Joe Biden. Each of these new plants is a major economic development story for its region. I'll focus on the one closest to where he lives, he says, in Ohio. LG and Honda have teamed up on a factory in Jeffersonville, Ohio, that will have the capacity of 40 gigawatt hours of batteries per year and support 2,200 jobs. The projected investment is $4.4 billion, and construction final stages. Spokesman for the project said battery production will begin late this year. All right, this is from Mario Knopfel. He says Putin takes a 180-degree U-turn. He says, no, BRICS does not intend to destroy the U.S. dollar. Oh, well, really? Okay. The BRICS group is a platform for social and economic development on the global level. We are not planning to create new barriers to fight against the West. I wonder why the change. I wonder why the statement. All right, now let's talk about uncertainty. Let's talk about the S&P Global U.S. Services PMI fell to 49.7 in February of 2025 from 52.9 in the previous month, and that was way below expectations that it would rise to 53. This is the first contraction in the services sector in 2 years. The swing took place amid a near stagnation in the level of new orders, with firms citing worsening new orders growth to political uncertainty, notably due to spending cuts and pro-inflationary policies by the new presidential administration. Now, that takes some unpacking. Yes, so worsening new orders growth, political uncertainty. Yes, I would say that people might be cutting back on their services decisions due to political uncertainty. That's my theme. That's one of my 2 themes right now. However, and pro-inflationary policies, well, that would be maybe, again, the perception being produced by the media. I'm going to say it again. Tariffs are not inflationary. They can create price increases. That's not inflation. Let me know in the comments below if you're still confused by this, because tariffs are disinflationary. They produce income to the Treasury. To the extent that they increase the amount of money coming into the Treasury, it reduces the amount of Treasury bonds that need to be sold. That reduces inflation. That reduces interest rates. Interest rate reductions reduces the amount that the Treasury has to spend, that the U.S. government has to spend on interest, which also reduces interest rates. Manufacturing output, meanwhile, rose for a second consecutive month. This would be tremendously good news if it starts continuing. Rising at the sharpest rate for 11 months, principally buoyed by higher new orders. However, some of this new order growth might be part of the steepening loss of export orders. Many manufacturers also reported the rise in production and demand was in part linked to front-running potential cost increases or supply shortages due to tariffs. Again, this makes no sense. I'm trying to figure this out. You would be importing more stuff right now in order to get ahead of the tariffs, if that's what you're trying to do. That would not increase production in the United States unless you take those imported components and turn them into products. And that is not necessarily what you would do. You would bring them in, you'd put them in the warehouse, and then you'd create the components as you need them for orders. So I'm sorry, their analysis makes no sense. It's okay. They're not necessarily great analysts. They're supposed to just be compiling information. Future sentiment, optimism about the coming year slumped to its lowest since December of 2022, except for last September when business was unsettled by uncertainty ahead of the election. The deterioration in February was primarily a reflection of increased uncertainty about the business environment, especially in relation to federal government policies related to domestic spending cuts and tariffs. All right, domestic spending cuts and tariffs. I agree. I think this is going to be huge. I keep saying we might have a recession. Elon said there could be some pain. Worries over higher prices. No. Yeah, higher prices. Yes, I'm sorry. And broader geopolitical developments were also noted. Yes, so there could be higher prices for some imported goods. No doubt about it. Broader geopolitical developments, definitely uncertain. Future sentiment remained relatively elevated in manufacturing by recent standards, though from January's 34-month high, services sector confidence showed a steep decline. Now, remember, services were, like I said, at a massive high. However, if you get any kind of downturn in services, it is going to impact the economy. There's going to be less jobs. There's going to be, less activity, less profits. So, yeah, this is going to happen. Consumer sentiment also extended its early month decline, sliding nearly 10% from January. The decrease was unanimous across all groups by age, income, and wealth. All 5 index components deteriorated this month, led by a 19% plunge in buying conditions for durables. Not good, in large part due to fears that tariff-induced price increases are imminent. Expectations for personal finances and the short-run economic outlook both declined almost 10% in February, while the long-run economic outlook fell about 6% to its lowest reading since November. While sentiment fell for both Democrats and independents, it was unchanged for Republicans, reflecting continued disagreements on the consequence of new economic policies. Yeah, so the Democrats are like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. And the independents are like, oh, maybe the sky is falling. And the Republicans are like, no, this is what we wanted. And yeah, it could cause some short-term pain, but it's going to be great eventually. Year ahead inflation expectations jumped up from 3.3 to 4.3, the highest reading since November, and marking 2 consecutive months of unusually large increases. The current reading is now well above the 2. Now, listen, I want to give everybody their due. People do not understand the difference between inflation and price increases. Price increases could well happen this year because of the tariffs. That's absolutely true, but it is not inflation. And a lot of the price increases that people are worried about probably won't happen either because of all the things I've been explaining for a year and a half about what happens in the real supply chain. Long-run inflation expectations rose over the course of the month and climbed from 3.2 in January to 3.5 in February. So long range, they're only expecting a little bit of an increase. This is the largest month-over-month increase since May. For both short and long-range inflation expectations, this month's increases were widespread and seen across all income and age groups. Inflation increases rose this month for independents and Democrats. They fell slightly for Republicans. Uncertainty is definitely to be expected with the shock and awe campaign instituted by the new administration. This is me talking now, not them. It will likely take, my belief is we're looking at another 60 days before the uncertainty begins to get more clarity. You cannot fire, lay off, get rid of 300, 400,000 employees at the federal government without an impact. You can't cancel hundreds and hundreds of contracts and reduce the overall federal government by $1 trillion without it having an impact on services and goods. It's going to have an impact. The question is how much. The other side of the question is bonds falling, bond rates falling, bond values increasing because they're going opposite directions, bonds rallying and interest rates dropping will have a stimulative effect on the economy. And as Larry and I talked about for the last couple of weeks, what we're looking at is which one, how does this cross each other? Do we get the stimulation that increases spending in the consumer sector before we get the results of the falling incomes from the federal workers laid off, which in some cases it's going to be 8 months before they even before they run out of their income. These are going to be ships passing in the night, and we might get a recession out of this, or we might get a great economy early. Either way, we get a great economy later. Okay, so let's take a look. Does that make sense? I hope it made sense. Let's go ahead and look at the situation in the stock market. Well, okay, so the consumer sentiment thing combined, I think, with the S&P has got the market taking a little dive this morning, and Tesla is leading it. So we've got which everything was fine until the consumer sentiment came out. But I think when that got added to the S&P, people got unhappy. So Dow Jones down 362. That's about where it had already gone anyway. But the NASDAQ now has crunched down quite a bit, down 119. S&P down 33. Tesla down $7.54 to 346. We could easily see 325 before we see going back into the high fours. Apple, everything down except for Meta, down up a little bit. Everything else is down in the Magnificent Seven, and the Cathie Woods are all down as well, except for Square and 𝐒𝐚𝐿GO. The rest of them are down and can't. So, okay. Percentage-wise, we have got the Dow down 0.84, NASDAQ down 0.63, S&P down 0.59, and Tesla down 2%. So, this is not S&P, Dow, NASDAQ, all way out past their skis. I've been calling for a cooling off period. We need to see this setback in these indices. Tesla will be impacted by the macro. This is absolutely going to happen. If there's a macro fallback by 5, 10, 15, 20%, Tesla will be impacted by that. Could we go back into the twos? We could go back into the twos. It is entirely possible. But where are we going to be in 6 months? We're going to be at over 500 after the robotaxi comes out. I don't care what happens along the way. We're going to be going to 6, 7, 800,000 by the end of the year, maybe even 1,200 if we get interesting news about Optimus. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at where the bonds are. Where the bonds are now. We have got the 10-year down 4.1. This is the way we see. This is, you see, in order to get the bonds down, you've got to get some negative news in the economy. Probably. I mean, it could happen just because of DOGE, but you might need a little bit of softening in the economy in order to get the bonds down. So they're down to 4.458. That's down 4.1 basis points right now. I'd like to see it drop like, way more than that. You've got the 2-year down 2.5 and the 1 month down 0.5 basis points this morning. Let's go ahead and look at oil. Oil is also down. You see, this is going to be really helpful for actual inflation because oil is, how do you want to put it? Oil is oil is not actually going to create our stop inflation, but it is a condition that the pricing of oil reaches throughout the economy, and so it feels like inflation. Does that make sense? You only have two things that create inflation. I'm going to say it again. Sorry. Number one is how much money does the government spend more than it actually gets in, and number two, how productive is the overall economy, which is primarily due to human labor compared to the number of widgets and services produced. That's it. Nothing else creates nothing else creates inflation or deflation or disinflation. That's it. Those two things. But oil is kind of like a blood that works throughout the economy. It's almost like another fiat currency, if you will. Anyway, so It's good when oil is down. It really helps the overall impression of pricing. So oil is down 1.19, $1.19 down to 71.29 again. We got to get under 70 today. I want to get under 70 today. Okay, looks like it's going to take another week to get under 70. You got natural gas up 5.68% to almost 39 cents, $4.39. You've got gold coming off its effort to break through 3,000 at 29.37, down 18.60 this morning. Silver following it, under 33 now at 32.95, down 1.6%. And copper also down 1.19% this morning. You've got the dollar nearing 2025 lows as the bulls get nervous. The Bitcoin is down at almost 1,100 at 97,571 after being up for a couple of days. And that's it. That is, I always forget that there's no more to tell you after that. All right, so what do you got later today? You've got Larry Goldberg. I feel like Larry will be on. I have to track him down somewhere in Texas, but I'm pretty sure he'll be on later today. And then a new guest for tonight, or the new guest will be on tomorrow. And if the new guest is on tomorrow, it'll probably be Brian Wong tonight. And so be sure to tune in for those. Like, subscribe, notify, all that jazz. Join Patreon. And then last night, of course, we had Søren Basher. You loved his show last night. The comments were phenomenal. So if you didn't look at it already, there is the card to go take a look. He went into the competitive robots and what are the robots doing right now, as well as the overall Optimus situation going forward in terms of what is the real TAM? Why do people keep knocking down the numbers when the TAM is really, 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 really high? Okay, so take a look at that. I'll put the card right up there. And for now, that's all I got. It's been great. You wanted me to look at Tesla again. Oh, I'm sorry. It's still going down. Yeah, it's down a lot. It's down 2.13%. It is down $7.55 at $347. Call it $347. Okay, that's it. It's been great talking to you. Bye for now.